Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover one PowerPoint slide here, and I kind of want to position where the xMatters solution fits within your process. Okay, so up on the screen here you can see I have a sphere up here that's labeled product and another one labeled individual. On the right hand side, the product would represent any product within your data center. In particular, today we're talking about Remedy, but it could be BPPM, it could be any kind of a network monitoring tool or trouble ticketing or change management tool. Okay, so we've got that product that you've invested in, and over on the left hand side are the individuals that need to know when something goes on. They need to know when a ticket has been created or when a change needs to be approved or when a network goes down. Okay, so let's use an example here. I have an incident that gets created in Remedy. Maybe a network system goes down, or a network server goes down, or a Unix Unix server goes down. I need to get a hold of some individual. What most people will do today is if I have let's say, a Unix server that goes down, I need to get a hold of my Unix admins. And if I have 10 of those guys, typically what most people will do is within Remedy send emails out to those 10 people. Okay, and what we do is we tend to call that send and hope. I'm going to send a notification out to everybody, and I hope somebody does something about it. Okay, well, what we do is we have what's called an xMatters relevance engine, and that relevance engine goes between Remedy or whatever product you have and those individuals on the left-hand side. We allow the individuals to define what matters to them, how they want to be notified, what kind of devices they have, what's the schedule, the on-call list, rotations, escalations, things like that. Once the relevance engine has that information, when an event occurs, a ticket gets created and needs to be assigned, a change needs to be approved, a network goes down, whatever it is, that information automatically is sent from Remedy to the relevance engine, and we find out who needs to know about that. We do this based on schedules, locations, etc. We'll then notify the right person on any device they choose: pager, email, BlackBerry, iPhone, Android, voice over phone, anything the user wants. Okay? Now the key here is I don't want to notify everyone. What I do want to notify is the right person. And so one of the goals of our product is that we know when to not send out notifications to people. So instead of notifying all 10 people in that Unix admin group, what I'm going to do is notify the first person, and I expect them to respond. They need to reply on any two-way device: pager, email, BlackBerry, iPhone, voice over phone, whatever they have. And when they respond, we will go back and take an action for them on that product, in this case, Remedy. So we'll assign the ticket, approve the change, whatever it is that they're doing. If that person does not respond in an appropriate amount of time, we then escalate to the next person and so on. The idea here is if there were 10 people I was trying to get a hold of and the first person responds, I no longer need to send out the other 9. So we've gotten rid of 90% of the noise that's going on today. So instead of your device going off all day long and you getting notifications about everything, the only time your device is going to go off is when it's your turn and you need to take an action. So very, very targeted as opposed to send and hope. Okay? Now, the other thing to keep in mind is what I just drew there was a typical IT process coming from Remedy, going through the relevance engine, finding a person, and letting them interact back to Remedy. This individual on the left-hand side here can also be people outside of IT. So this could be a manager, an executive, somebody that defines what matters to them. And maybe what they want is a proactive notification when their service or their system goes down. So we can now notify people outside of IT or even customers outside of the company proactively, and that would then cut down on costs into the help desk or calls into the help desk. Okay, so when an event occurs, we don't have everybody calling the help desk. We proactively let them know what's going on. All right? So that was what I wanted to do for PowerPoint. We're going to go ahead and get out of that, and let's take a look at the product live. So where I'm going to start off with is let's talk about Remedy. Okay, I've got Remedy up here for Remedy trouble ticket, and typically what will happen is when a ticket is created, it's assigned at the group level. So that means that we're trying to get a hold of somebody, in this case, in the network operations group. You'll notice the assignee field on the bottom here is empty. That's because I don't know if it's going to be Bob, Mary, Joe, or Jim that runs with this incident. What I do know is I need to get a hold of somebody in network operations. And again, let's use the example that there's 10 people in that group. What would happen in a typical Remedy implementation is at this point, 10 emails get sent out to all those people, and we hope that one of them takes the ticket. What's going to happen in this case is when xMatters is employed, the ticket is saved, the information goes over to xMatters, we figure out who's on call and start that notification process one person at a time. What you'll see here is we've sent a notification to Bob Smith on his SMS phone. We've got an audit trail showing up in the work detail here showing every single device notification to every single person. So we've got actually 2 notifications that have gone out to Bob. The second one went to his work email. Again, this could be an SMS message, phone call, email, BlackBerry message, whatever it is. But I now have a complete audit trail in the ticket that shows up automatically showing who was notified. Note that we're only notifying Bob. I don't want to notify all 10 people. I want one person to take this ticket. Okay? So we're going to pretend we're Bob. He's out running around with a device in his pocket somewhere, and that device goes off. And again, this could be an SMS, this could be an email, this could be a voice phone call. Here's what a typical notification would look like coming from Remedy. I've got the ticket information like the impact, the summary, the urgency, priority, things like that. But the most important thing is at the bottom of this notification, I'm giving him a menu of options. I need Bob to do something. Okay? In this case, I'm giving him 3 options. Accept means go ahead and assign the ticket to me, stop all further notifications. Ignore, that's perfectly fine. That means, hey, I'm too busy. Move on to the next guy right away. Go ahead and mark in the ticket that I ignored it and then move on to the next person. And then resolved is a neat option. Maybe I accepted this ticket an hour ago and I worked on it. I now have the ability to come back to the same notification, select resolved, and change the status of that ticket very quickly without having to log in or go to my desktop to change the state of the ticket. Okay? In this case, Bob's going to go ahead and accept the incident. So he's saying, I've got it. I'll go run with it. Go ahead and assign the ticket to me. He does that from his device. We flip back over and do a refresh here, and we'll see that it was accepted by Bob on a particular device. We can also see that the status has changed to in progress. So if we go over to the left-hand side of the ticket here, the most important piece is right here we can see Bob Smith's name showed up. Okay? So that whole thing happened in literally less than a minute. We found the right person. We notified them on the devices they chose. They responded on that device, and we now have the ticket assigned to Bob, all in less than a minute. The key here is that there were 10 people in the network operations group. 9 people were not notified. We didn't wake them up. We didn't bother them. We didn't send them a notification. They don't need to know because Bob's taking control. He's owning the ticket. So extremely efficient and extremely targeted. This will happen for every ticket all day long. Okay? So that's how we work with Remedy. Again, we can tie into other products as well. So let's take a look at where that's set up. So this is our web user interface. It's self-service. It allows each person to define how they prefer to be notified. Now, typically in an implementation, we'll synchronize some of this data out of Remedy or an Active Directory or wherever you get some of this data. We'll have the person's email address, their work phone, and things like that. But we do allow the user to go in and set up their own devices. So I can have as many devices as I want. I can have an SMS phone, work phone, mobile phone, pager, BlackBerry, email, whatever I have. And I can define time frames on when I prefer to use those particular devices. For example, my home phone. I only want you to use that on Saturday and Sunday. Otherwise, don't use that device. Okay? So I've got these preferences that allow me to define when you can find me on certain devices. Basically, this is a way of how to locate me. This is an order to these devices, and I can also test them on my own. So I have a validation column here. And that allows me to click on any of these icons. It'll call, page, or email me on that device. And then when I respond, it changes to a green check mark. So fully self-service, allowing that user to decide how they want to be notified instead of forcing it over a certain device. Now, you're typically not going to notify a single person, okay, about an event, and that's where groups come into play. These would always be synchronized with Remedy. And what this allows us to do is define either a simple list of people to notify or a fairly sophisticated schedule like we see here. So in this case, for my Unix admin group, I've got defined daytime, evenings, weekends, whatever I want. And within those, if I want to see, let's say, who's on call Monday evening, I can hover over that and up pops a list. So this shows me that I have 4 people on call, and I have an escalation time in minutes on the left-hand side of that box. So if I have an event for my Unix admin team, we're only going to notify Calvin on his devices first. We're giving Calvin 20 minutes to respond on any of those devices. If he responds, we're done. We don't wake up, bother anybody. We're finished. If he doesn't respond within 20 minutes, we start notifying Art on his devices as well. So we keep going through this list until somebody responds to the event. The idea here is that it is relentless, and it will keep going until somebody takes the ticket or approves the change or whatever the process is. Okay? I can have different people. I can have different escalation times on the weekend, during the day, whatever I want to do. In this case here, I actually have 2 people being notified at the same time. That's perfectly fine. The first person to respond is the one that owns the ticket. You'll also notice in this example I have a group at the bottom. That means that I have 4 people on call, and if all 4 of them ignore this for 50 minutes, we move on to another group called operations, which has another escalation process. So as you can see here, the relentless feature here can keep going from person to person, group to group, until somebody takes responsibility for the incident. This all happens automatically without human intervention for every single ticket. One of the other things that we can do here is we can have what we call an automatic rotation. So let's say I have my group here set up with Mary first every day, but she doesn't want to be notified first all the time. We can set up what we call an automatic rotation. Maybe it's every Tuesday at 8 a.m. What will happen is every Tuesday we'll take the person at the top, we'll move them to the bottom, and move everybody else up automatically. So we have this automated rotation that happens every day, every week, every month, whatever makes sense for your organization. So we're taking turns on who's first on call. You'll notice there's an in-rotation column on the left-hand side, so we're only rotating the people that are checkmarked, which means that this escalation down here stays at 50 minutes. So this is a very, very typical IT arrangement where I've got certain people on call and I want to rotate them. I no longer have to do that manually in a spreadsheet or somewhere else. I can now have that automatically done for me forever. What I've shown you here within groups is maintained by the manager of these people. So keep in mind that it is self-service. The manager can move people around, change escalations, whatever they want. The next step, or the next question that typically comes up, is what happens if I wake up sick today? Or what happens if I go on vacation? Well, the manager can change the groups whenever they want, but we've also added a feature for the end user called temporary replacement. That allows me as a user to come in here, look at my groups, and I can actually have somebody take my place. Let's say I wake up sick today. I'm going to have Mary sit in for me in my groups from this day to this day during certain hours. And when I hit save, both Mary and my manager get an email explaining what I've done. And what I've done here is Mary will be notified on her devices for all of my events during those days and times. So very, very quickly, in a couple of clicks, I've got somebody sitting in for me. Could be for a day, could be for a couple of hours, could be for a week, whatever I want to do. Okay, so again, we're pushing that self-service capability to let people set this up whenever they need. The next area we're going to look at is what we call subscriptions, and this is typically used for end-user notifications. So let's take a step back. We're not IT anymore. We're an executive in the company, or we're the accounting manager sitting out there. Okay, this is a customizable panel. So this is something that RightStar would set up for you guys and customize it based on your business needs. This is different for each company. Okay, in this particular case, I have 3 key fields for criteria. And let's say, again, I am the accounting manager. I have nothing to do with IT, but when the accounting system has a critical incident that's created, I'd like to know about it. I'd like a phone call. I'd like an email. And I also only care about that during the week. Do whatever you want on the weekends. Okay? So you've just given me the ability to define when I care about this, how I want to be notified, and what it is I want to be notified about. Very, very powerful in getting me that information in real time, instantly, without me having to call the help desk. I can change this to whatever process I need. Maybe when a change has failed on the accounting system, I want to know. Or maybe even better yet, when a change has been approved on the accounting system, let me know proactively, because you're probably going to schedule to take my system down. So you can let people find out about anything they need to know about. And you build this and allow certain people to have access to this. Moving on to reporting, there are a lot of different reports within the product, but I'm going to cover one in particular, and this is what we call a manager report. This is if I happen to manage, let's say, the application support group. Okay, they're my group, and I have people that are on call. At any point in time, in real time, I can actually look up data that shows how many events my group has received, how many they've responded to, the average time to respond, how long does it take them to respond in minutes to every notification.